Good morning. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can, Joanna. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so good morning. I'm going to be presenting my Women in Engineering presentation today. So I'm going to start this presentation off with a bit of an introduction. So who am I? My name is Joanna. I grew up in Nottingham and moved to Stamford in 2020 to start my job at Caterpillar. So that's me. After my A-levels, I went to the University of Lincoln to study mechanical engineering. I did a year out between my second and third year at Jaguar Land Rover, and then went on to graduate with a master's degree in 2020. So when I'm not at work, the hobbies I do after work, I like to meet up with my friends. I also have a horse. That's him in the photo there. He's called Loki. He takes up a lot of my time, which is great fun. And when I was younger, I also had quite a few STEM related hobbies and interests. So at school, I was always really good at maths and science, whereas I found some of the language and art subjects a bit more challenging. So drama and English, I wasn't very good at them. And then after school, I would often help my dad fix things in his workshop. I really liked playing with Lego. I've got two younger brothers, so we'd often play with Lego after school. And one year for Christmas, I was given a model engine to build. It worked as well, so you could plug it in and you'd see all the parts moving. So that was really cool. There's a picture of me in 2003 on a dumper truck in the garden. Not a Caterpillar dumper truck, unfortunately. But, okay. So what does Caterpillar do? I work at PERKINS Engine Company Limited, which is owned by Caterpillar. And at Caterpillar, we develop power solutions, and they're made to be efficient and fuel flexible. So at PERKINS, we design, build, and test all of our engines. That's one of our engines there. And these engines power machines such as telehandlers, which is the photo on the left, and backhoe loaders, as well as many, many others. We also create emergency power in the form of generators. So that photo is a photo of a generator, and they can be used as emergency power in hospital, schools, and for disaster relief. So for example, if a school has a power cut or a hospital has a power cut, they'll often have backup generators that will then create the electricity for them until the power comes back on, which especially in hospitals can be life-saving. So you've probably seen some of our machines that Caterpillar make at the side of the road, especially when there's roadworks going on or building works. Those big yellow machines with CAT written on the side. So here's an example of some of the machines that we make. We make crop sprayers that help fertilize the crops, so the top left. And then you've got construction equipment like backhoe loaders, bulldozers, and excavators. So now I'm going to go into a little bit about what is engineering. So there are lots of different types of engineers. I'm going to go through a few different ones today, but there are so many more. So this is only a few, small selection. So we have mechanical engineers, which is what I am. And we design and create products like engines, ships, fridges, turbines, and vehicles. So your cars, your motorbikes, but even little things like your electric toothbrush will have had a mechanical engineer working on it. So really quite varied. Then you've got civil engineers. They design and create products like bridges, tunnels, roads, airports, tube systems, and water supply systems. So for instance, if you've ever been on the London Underground, that was a civil engineer designed that. And also just turning on your tap at home. Again, that water supply system has been designed and created by a civil engineer. We also have electrical engineers. So they design and create devices that use or produce electricity, from small objects like microchips, lights, computers, to larger scale projects like satellites and power station generators, so really big things. We've got chemical engineers, so they design and create chemicals, fuels, foods, medicines, all things like that that involve chemicals. And then for my last example, I've chosen biomedical engineering. So biomedical engineers design and create products that improve human health and healthcare, like artificial internal organs, prosthetics, as you can see in that photo, a prosthetic hand, and medical machines. So if you've ever had to go to the hospital or visited someone in hospital, you can see that there's lots of normally beeping machines hooked up to a patient, monitoring them, things like that. They're all created by biomedical engineers. So yeah, there's a big variety, and like I said, these are only a few. There's so many more out there. So what is an engineer? Don't know if you want to take half a minute in your class to discuss what you think an engineer is. So hopefully that was enough time to get a few answers. But my definition of an engineer would be someone who makes an idea into something real. So someone who designs and makes something. I'm sure there was lots of other ways to interpret that. And then we've got, what kind of skills do you think an engineer needs? So to create, design, and make something, what skills would be important there? I'll give you another half a minute. So I've got math skills are really important in engineering. You use maths and physics every day. So yeah, math, science, but also design and art skills and practical skills are really important to help you become an engineer. So yeah, it's a big variety of skills, but very maths based as well. So how many of you have played with Lego? I just want you to think back to that last time you played with Lego. What steps did you take? So you probably didn't think of it as steps, but you decide you want to play with Lego. What is it that you do? So first, you probably thought about what it was you wanted to build. So you decide, oh, I'm going to build a really big tower, or I'm going to try and build a really strong cube or something like that. So you're basically, that's your design. You've decided what you want to build, and you don't have to write it down, but you've probably got some kind of design in your head. Then you'd build what you wanted to. So you'd bring that idea to life. You've built that tower or that really robust cube or something. And then you go on to play with it, test it. And if something broke whilst you're playing, so if that tower collapsed, next time you'd probably build it differently. So you'd think about how you could make it stronger and basically improve your design to get what you wanted from it. So that's really similar to what an engineer does. I'll give you another half a minute to just talk about if any of you know what kind of career you'd want in the future. Wonderful. Hopefully there was a bit of variety there, hopefully some engineers. So now I'm going to move on to a bit more about my job. So I'm a graduate trainee engineer. So this means I get a new job every 6 months. So it lasts 2 years. It's the graduate scheme at Perkins and Caterpillar. So yeah, so I have 4 jobs within 2 years, and every 6 months I move on to a new job. One of my 6-month rotations was as a validation engineer. So validating means to prove something and to confirm something. So I guess as a question, what do you think is involved with the role? What do you think a validation engineer does? Give you another 30 seconds to think about that. So basically, a validation engineer, I was a software validation engineer, but when something new goes onto the machine, we have to test that it works as it should be working. So for my job, that was the software on the machine, but it could also be anything new on the machine has to be tested to make sure it works. So to test something on a machine, to validate it, you'd have someone driving that machine for lots of hours. So anywhere between 50 to more than 300 hours to test that machine. And whilst it's being tested, there's a lot of data being recorded on the machine. So things like the temperatures, the speeds, just lots of different things being recorded. So the validation engineer takes all of the data that's been recorded whilst the machine's been tested, puts it onto their laptop and looks at it and makes sure all the temperatures are in the right, aren't too hot, aren't too cold. Everything else is behaving as it should. And if it is behaving as it should, then that's great. Get a big green tick, that can be validated. And if something's behaving on how you'd not expected it to behave, how you won't want it to behave, like it's got really hot, or the engine's too slow, something like that, you have to investigate why that problem's happened and how you can solve that problem. And then you'd go back and restart the validation process until you've got the confidence that it's working as it should. So there's a lot of different skills that I use in my job. Use a lot of maths and science. I think I've touched on it before, that's kind of the underlying skills in engineering. So you learn these skills at school and university. But then you've also got teamwork, which is a really important part of my job. So you pick up the skill even when you're just playing with friends, doing group work, things like that. There's that photo on the right. You can see a photo of the group project I did in my last year of university. So it was a mechanical go-kart, so like with pedals and a steering wheel, and we turned it into an electrical go-kart. So it actually had a PlayStation steering wheel at the end. So basically plugged into the cart, but that worked. And so that was really cool. And then you've also got problem solving, which you might not realize, but you do that every day. So if you're playing a board game, if you're solving a maths problem, even just little things, if something's annoying you and you want to change it, you are basically problem solving. And then again, that just gets, you get those everyday life, and then they get refined at school and at university to get more focus on them. That's pretty much my engineering journey. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Joanna. Just looking at the chat, so in response to some of the things where you asked what skills were involved, a couple of answers were popped in the chat. People who build and design and repair stuff, teamwork was mentioned, communication, smart, patience and resilience was also mentioned in there.
Those are good answers, that's really good.
Did you always want to be an engineer, Joanna? So when you were at school, is this a career path that you always knew that you wanted to follow?
No, definitely not. So after my A levels, I actually took a year out to try and decide what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a horse trainer, and I basically realised that I really did like maths and physics, and I wanted a job that was focused around those things. And engineering has kind of popped into my lap. My dad's an engineer, but even with my dad being an engineer, I hadn't really considered it until after my A levels. No one had really suggested it to me, I guess. So yeah, it was more taking a year out to really think about what I wanted. Yeah, doing my own research, and I realised engineering was actually a pretty good fit for the things that I enjoyed at school.
Great. There's not actually any answers in chat. I think you must have covered everything that they needed to know. What we will do is we will upload the recording of this video onto the YouTube channel if you wanted to revisit it, and any schools that weren't able to join us today. So I think what we'll do is we will end the recording there.